Today we're checking out the Player's Kai, Final Fantasy VII Remake, Cloud Strife and Hardy Daytona. So thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you guys have a great day, and let's get into it. Hey, what is going on guys? Today we're checking out the Player's Kai, Final Fantasy VII Remake, Cloud Strife and the Hardy Daytona figures from the first class edition of the game. So yeah guys, this is a super nice set. So thank you guys so much for taking the time to check out this video. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and leave a suggestion in the comments below for what video you guys want to see next. And so let's take a quick look at the packaging for this figure. So here's the front, so we have the logo of the game, Final Fantasy VII Remake, Player's Kai, Cloud Strife and Hardy Daytona. Super nice. And so here's the back of the packaging, and so we pretty much just have a whole bunch of text, credits and logos on the making of the figure. And so here's the inside of the box. Here we have the Hardy Daytona, and I mean it just looks like such a nice piece. I really cannot wait to get this thing out of the packaging. But yeah, here we have the Cloud Strife figure. So yeah guys, there's a quick look at the packaging and the accessories for the figure. Let's go ahead and get this figure out of the box, and we will take a closer look. So yeah, stay tuned guys. Alright guys, and so here's the figure, out of the packaging and fully assembled. And yeah, I gotta say guys, this is such a nice piece. It's so much better than I expected. I think the detailing is a lot better than it is on the Fenrir figure, and I mean that's saying a lot because the Fenrir is such a nice bike, but I think I may like the Daytona just a little bit better. And there's also a bit of weight to the bike. It's actually pretty heavy. Now unfortunately there's no light up features on this bike. I mean we have a headlight right here at the front, and we also have a tail light at the back, but yeah, unfortunately they just don't light up, which is a real shame because it would have made the bike so much better. I mean I really don't understand why they couldn't put lights on this bike when Fenrir had a light on that bike. So yeah, it just really doesn't make any sense for me that there's no light up features on this bike. But nonetheless, I do really love this bike so much. It's just such a nicely designed bike, and it's a really nice figure. And it's also got a bit of articulation in there as well, which I'll give you guys a look at a little bit later on. Now as for the Cloud figure, it's a little bit disappointing. This is the exact same Cloud figure that has previously been released in 2017, but I mean it's still a great figure. It still has a great head sculpt, so yeah, it really doesn't bother me too much, but it just would have been so much better if they included the new figure of Cloud Strife. But yeah, it's still a very nice figure, and I'm very impressed with the Daytona. So yeah guys, let's go ahead and take a closer look at the Final Fantasy VII Remake, First Class Edition, Hardy Daytona and Cloud Strife. Alright, and so let's go ahead and take a closer look at the bike. So right here we have the front tire, and yeah, it's super nicely detailed. I mean look at all these mechanical sections in the bike, like all these pistons and all these fine details. It's just so nicely done. Of course the pistons don't actually work, but it's a very nice detail nonetheless, and I'm super impressed. It's just so much more detailed compared to the Fenrir, in my opinion. I mean it's just such a nice bike, and I think it looks a lot different compared to Fenrir, which I think is a good thing. It's good to have a contrast between the two bikes. So yeah, I love the designs of both bikes. Moving on to the side of the Daytona. I love all the reflections, like all these kind of shiny reflective surfaces on the bike. It's just so nicely done, and it makes the bike look super rich and super high quality. So yeah, here's a look at the first handle on the bike. And so moving down here to the bottom of the bike, and here we have all these engine parts. And I mean, just look at the detailing in here. It's pretty insane. I've never seen detailing quite like this from a Player's Kai figure. You can really tell that they put a lot of efforts into this bike. I would say that this is probably one of the best figures that Player's Kai have ever made. Even the paint jobs in there are super nicely done. We have all these bronze and metallic colors. And here at the bottom, you may be able to see we have this stand for the bike, which is actually made out of metal. So it really does help to support the weights of the bike. And so here's a look at the size of these engine pieces, like the exhaust pipe. It's super cool looking. And here's the back tire. And so here's the fronts of the bike. And so here we have the front bumper section with this really cool design here on the fronts. It's really quite amazing, the level of design that has went into this bike. It's very, very impressive. And so here is the fronts of the Daytona. And so here's a look at the top. And so as you can see, it's super reflective, very shiny, which I think is really cool. It just adds a nice touch to the figure. So yeah, there's a look at the top. Once again, we have all these pistons. These are handles for the bike. And I guess here's a quick look at the Cloud figure. I'll get into more detail a little bit later on with the Cloud. And so here is the other side of the figure. So here's the front tire piece. Once again, all these mechanical parts, all these pistons sculpted in there. Moving on here to the side of the bike. It's just so nicely done. I really can't express enough how detailed this piece really is. And once again, all the paint jobs, all the colors are really nice and clean. I really don't see any issues on this figure in terms of the paint job. It's very clean paint jobs for the most part. And here's a quick look at the figure from this side. And moving down here to the legs. And as you can see, there's like a little compartments for the feet to go into. So the figure is really secure on the bike. And here's a look at the engine piece. And so here's the back of the bike, and so here's the tire. So now I must mention, this tire piece is made out of a semi-soft piece of plastic, so it's quite bendy, it's very soft to the touch, which is a really nice feature on this figure. And so here's a look at the back of the tail lights. And so as I mentioned before, the figure does not have a light-up feature, which is really disappointing. I mean, the figure would have looked so much better with lights. So yeah, it's definitely a shame, but nonetheless, it still looks pretty good, so I'm not going to complain too much. And so here's the back of the Cloud figure. So yeah, there's a look at the back of the Daytona. And so here's a quick comparison on both of the bikes which Player's Kai have made. So right here we have the Final Fantasy Advent Children. This is Fenrir in Cloud. Such a nice bike. I mean, I absolutely love the Fenrir. And here we have the Hardy Daytona and Cloud Strife. So yeah, as you can see, there is quite a big difference between these two bikes in terms of the design, but for the most part, they're around the same size. So one of the biggest differences between these two bikes is the fact that Fenrir has a light-up feature. As you can see, it's a very subtle light, but there is a light in there, whereas Daytona just does not have a light. And here's a look at the back as well. As you can see, we have a red tail light at the back, whereas Daytona, it doesn't have a light at all. So yeah, really, really disappointing. And of course, both of the Cloud figures are completely different. So here is the Remake Cloud, and here is the AC Cloud. So yeah, as you can see, it's a lot different in terms of the design. And I really couldn't choose which one I like better. I mean, they both have their pros and cons, but for the most part, they are both excellent bikes. And yeah, you'll be happy with either bike. And so here's just a super quick close-up on both of these bikes. So here we have Fenrir. Such a nice figure. I absolutely love the design of this AC Cloud. And here we have the Remake Clouds with the Hardy Daytona that came with the first class edition of the game. Okay, and so as for the figure of Cloud Strife, so as I mentioned before, it's pretty much the exact same figure, which we've already seen. This is the same figure from 2017, so it's a bit of a shame that they released the same figure, but nonetheless, as I mentioned, it is still a very nice figure, still a very nice piece, great head sculpts, and it's actually one of my favorites Players Kai Final Fantasy VII figures, so I really don't have too much of a problem. But yeah, still a very nice piece. Here's a look at the body area, and here's a look at the arms. I mean, I'm sure you guys have seen this figure before. I really don't see any updates on the sculpt or the paint job, so yeah, it's literally just a recast of the same figure from 2017. And so here's the side of the figure, and so once again, it's pretty much the exact same. But let me know if you guys see any differences on this figure compared to the original. But for the most part, I think it's pretty much the exact same figure. And here's a quick look at the other side of the figure as well. So once again, there's the head sculpts. I love the shoulder pads, like all these kind of screws and nuts and bolts in there. It's a very, very cool design. And here's a look at the arms. Here's the Buster Sword, the legs, and the boots. And so here's the back of the figure. So there's the hairpiece. I mean, once again, as I mentioned, it's the same figure. You guys have seen this figure before, so I'm not going to cover it too much because it's a very old figure. But anyhow, there's a look at the back. And so just in case you guys are wondering, I've also got the original Final Fantasy VII Remake Cloud Strife still in the packaging. So I'm going to get this figure out of the box, and let's compare the original Cloud compared to the First Class Edition. Okay, and so here I've got both of the Final Fantasy VII Remake Cloud figures. So now that I've got the figures out of the packaging, I actually do see a difference between these two figures. So this here is the Cloud that comes with the First Class Edition of the game. And here we have the Cloud, which is the original Final Fantasy VII Remake Cloud Strife. And I do see a difference in the paint job in the face. As you can see, there's a stronger outline around his eyes and around his lips. Whereas the First Class Edition, it's not as detailed. It doesn't look as detailed compared to the original. I'm not sure if you guys can see that, but there's a very subtle difference between the paint job in the face for both of these figures. As for the body piece, I really don't see any differences at all. It's only the face, which is the biggest difference. And it's moving down here to the legs. Once again, looks to be the exact same. I don't see any differences in the sculpt or the paint job. And there's a look at the feet. So yeah, there's a quick look at both of the remake Clouds. Okay, and so here's a quick demo on the articulation for the Hardy Daytona. So right here at the front, we have a swivel joint for the fronts of this tire piece, as you can see. It doesn't really go very far. Here at the handles, they're on a swivel joint, as you can see. They kind of rotates. Same goes for the connector piece right here. It's also on a swivel joints. Right here at the wheel, as you can see, the wheel can spin, can go any way, which is really cool. Here at the bottom, we have this here like really sturdy metal connector piece. This is a really tight joint, and it just really helps to support the figure to prop up. There's pretty much nothing inside the body of the figure. There's no articulation here whatsoever that I can really see. And here at the back of the wheel, we have a rolling joint. I guess it's like a swivel joint, I guess. And as you can see, the wheels can move independently from each other, which is a really cool feature. And as I mentioned, they're made out of like a softer kind of piece of material. And they also rotate like so, which is pretty cool. They can actually spin all the way. So yeah, that's pretty much the articulation for the Hardy Daytona. And so as for the Cloud Strife figure, I mean, he's essentially got the exact same articulation that we've already seen before. So I mean, I really don't need to cover this, but just for those of you who have never seen this figure, I thought I would just cover the articulation really quickly here. So he's got a ball joints at the head and the neck, and right here he has these ball wrench joints at the shoulders. He has swivel joints at his biceps. He has ball hinge joints at the elbows and ball hinge joints at the wrist as well. Inside the torso piece, he has a ball joint in there, And he's also got a ball joint at the waist, and this here piece is also made out of like a softer piece of plastic. As you can see, it kind of bends. Here at the hips, we have these large ball ratchet joints. So yeah, those are super tight joints. Here at the thigh, we have a swivel joints. And here at the knee, we have a double hinge joints. Here at the ankle piece, we have a ball hinge joint in there. And here at the foot, we have a single hinge joints. So yeah, there's a quick demo on the articulation for Cloud Strife. So yes guys, this is such a nice piece. I just couldn't be happier with how this thing turned out. I mean, just all the work, just every bit of detail that went into making this figure is so nicely done. And yeah, I'm just so happy with how this thing turned out. So I mean, if you guys are a big fan of Final Fantasy VII, then you really got to pick this piece up. I'm not sure if this thing is sold out or how rare this thing is now, but I mean, this is just such a nice collectible from the remake of Final Fantasy VII. So yes, I highly recommend picking up this piece. You will not be disappointed. So yeah guys, thanks for watching and I hope you enjoyed. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and leave a suggestion in the comments below for what video you guys want to see next. So yeah, thanks for watching guys, take care, and I will catch you guys on the next video. Alright, take it easy guys.